Alright, so for the longest time I wanted to make a video about the Paarthurnax dilemma, and I get this game, Skyrim, came out like 15 years ago, and we're still talking about it, but it was kind of a cultural phenomenon then, and so it's probably gonna have some ripple effects for until Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, which is a fun way of saying never. So the Paarthurnax dilemma, I feel like a lot of people just get it wrong. Like, there is an objectively correct decision to make in this dilemma, and I wanted to explain why it's the correct decision, and that the decision is to kill Paarthurnax. I know that sounds very scary to some of you guys, so I'll start with the viewpoint of people who spare the life of Paarthurnax. They think that he's just enlightened. He's such a wow. He's just so nice. He's a nice dragon. The graybeards down there, they like him. Like, he doesn't go around terrorizing people. He was up here this whole time. And so they think that it's closer to the I don't know, they think it's like joining the Dark Brotherhood. Like, it's really not. If anything, sparing Paarthurnax is the bad decision. Like, I get it, you don't get around to it yet. I think you have to kill Alduin before you can kill Paarthurnax, and so that's a whole thing there. And so some people just don't get around to it on their playthrough because, it's not that every time that someone picks up a save of Skyrim, they do every decision that they want. But here's why you should kill Paarthurnax. And it's simply because you are the Dragonborn. What do? You kill the dragons. You are sent by Shor, the god of humanity, to kill dragons. It is no longer the Age of Akatosh that started with the Oblivion Crisis. From the point that the main story of Oblivion ends with Martin Septim's sacrifice, until the arrival of Shor's avatar, which is the last Dragonborn. From that time period, it's the Age of Akatosh. Now, Elder Scrolls 5 and hopefully Elder Scrolls 6 takes place in the Age of Shor, the god of man. And so, no more dragons. No more dragons. Why? What do we know about the dragons? Well, they are immortal and can only be killed by a Dragonborn, which is immortal. A mortal. So, yeah, if we really are the last Dragonborn in this game, we should be hunting them for our entire life. If we're 40 years after Skyrim, the Dragonborn should still be on the hunt for any surviving dragons. Because if the last Dragonborn dies, and there's still even one dragon, humanity can't do anything about that dragon. They might be able to imprison it. That's really all you can do with immortals. But, and people are like, oh, but he's been meditating for so long on the Thu'um, and so he's a nice guy. He said it himself that if you overcome your evil self, That's better than being born good. And I think that's a great sentiment to have. However, I know quite a bit about real world mythology, and so the decision is kind of just transparent to make. Um, so in Hindu mythology, Shiva is normally like a really passive guy. Like he does sit and he meditates. And he's the god of destruction. But Shiva has like an alter ego where he loses control of himself even during meditation, and then he becomes Rudra, who is the god of destruction's more violent form. And the only reason I bring this up, not because you need to, like take Paarthurnax as an interpretation of Shiva. If anything, Alduin would be Shiva, but that's beside the point. What really needs to be touched on is that Paarthurnax is an ascetic. So when someone is an ascetic, that's when they go out into the mountains, or they go into the forest and they just meditate by themselves. They remove themselves from society. But what asceticism means, what the literal definition is training. So if we see a dragon as an ascetic on a mountaintop, it's because they are training. And you can only understand that if you're studying the word, which is the Thum. And so he is training. And what's he training for? Well, first off, he's trying to convince the Dragonborn not to kill him, and there's really no good reason that Paarthurnax can give for the Dragonborn to not kill him, because if anything kills the Dragonborn, which, canonically, he's like the strongest being on the plane of Mundus at that point. Like any arch wizard is going to just be blown up by this Thum wielding mortal. But those arch wizards, even they can't do anything about a dragon because the dragon's immortal. But the mortal Dragonborn can kill these dragons. It's the destiny of the Dragonborn to kill every dragon, and that includes Paarthurnax. And I'm sorry to say, even though he sounds really nice on paper, oh, it's a nice dragon, he's not going to do anything bad ever again. That's not true. Everyone does bad things. When we lose control of ourselves, everyone loses control of themselves from time to time. And even Jesus, he whipped the moneylenders in the temple. Now, I don't go around beating people who are money lending in a temple because I'm in complete control of myself. And I hate to use that as a piss poor example, but like you gotta kill Paarthurnax. It's the end of end of story. That's like and sure, you go down and the graybeards are like, what have you done? And you just can't explain it to them. And here's really the cherry on top. All of the graybeards are Nords. And I'm a diehard Breton player. I love having my magic resist. You always start with an additional spell that's really good. And I'm just a Breton kind of guy. But the thing about Bretons is Bretons are usually a little bit more gifted up here, whereas Nords, I always say Nords have an intelligence stat of 30. So can we really trust these graybeards, even if they're wise, to be intelligent enough to understand, a word from the Indian subcontinent continent ascetic, which would, I think that would be like the Khajiits or something, because the Khajiits are likened to like Romas. The slur for those is gypsies. But you're not supposed to call them that. They're the Romas, and the Romas originally came from the Indian subcontinent. So, there's no graybeard that's a cat. That's all I'm saying. So when they see someone who's meditating and they're really wise, and it's like, wow, this guy, he has no bad intentions. It's not necessarily the bad intentions, but it's the potential that I think the Dragonborn should be trying to prevent. And that potential, I believe, would be brought to fulfillment at some point. And I think the worst case scenario is Paarthurnax being the only dragon. Because if Paarthurnax was the only dragon, who would stop him from being a tyrant if he decided to be a tyrant? It would almost be like an unstoppable force. You can't kill him. I think I've said my piece on the Paarthurnax dilemma, so, sorry for, saying the slur for Romas, sorry for ragging on every true Nord in the world. I'm sorry you have an intelligence stat of 30, and I'm sorry for what I said about Jesus. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you're into that. Helps other people see the content. And enjoy your day.